Hi, my name is Alex, and this is Travel TitBits 12. So now we move on to cars, and more specifically, flying cars. Yes, the stuff of legends. When I was growing up, the nearest I saw to a flying car was on a cartoon series called The Jetsons, a futuristic family based in the 1960s, no less. And whenever they travelled anywhere, they used their faithful jet car. It was a nice little bubble, and they just hopped aboard, and this glass thing would flip over them, and they would just shoot off into the distance. And when they went into town, there was just hundreds of flying cars everywhere, and everybody got on really well, and there was always somewhere to park your flying car. Of course, the reality of the 1970s was that there was nothing anywhere near it or likely to be near it for some time. But there was such a thing as a hovering fighter jet, and the one that caught my imagination in the 1970s was the Harrier jump jet, a very sleek machine which had these interesting nodules on the side, which were essentially the power of the jet engine that it was projecting. So when the nozzles were in a backward direction, it would propel itself forward, and when it wanted to hover over a small airfield or to land on a aircraft carrier, these nozzles just changed back as the aircraft slowed, and it performed this magic trick of hovering like a helicopter but with jets. It was extremely noisy but incredibly exciting to watch. These days, I looked up before coming on air today that there are absolutely loads of jets that can hover. But back in those days, it was a very rare moment indeed, and the Harrier jet was at least had a British badge on it. Whether it was actually built entirely by us, I don't know, but it was certainly ahead of its time. These days, we hear quite a lot about drones because they get used for military purposes. Drones, though, are starting to become a little bit more mainstream. They've had bad publicity over the years because people buy their own drones and they have this desire to fly them near airports, and airports get very fidgety about it and have hired laser equipment, and if the wrong kind of drone comes near their airport, someone has a wonderful time zapping all these £900 drone machines out of the air. But it also has a serious commercial use as well. Last year, the post office began a trial of a drone craft to some of the outer islands of Scotland. And essentially it's just someone sitting in a control room, presumably in the north of Scotland, who controls this drone on behalf of the post office, and it is more efficient and more reliable than sending boats, ships, or an actual physical plane with the mail in. I think that the difference between the two is that it's a battery technology, therefore it's cheaper, it's lighter. But what about the actual concept of a flying car? There's been many different ones trialled. I recently saw one on a TV program, which essentially it was a fancy sports car which had very long arms that would lift up, and then it sort of curled itself back. So that was for the road use. But when it came to the flying part, then it would fold forward, fold arm back to the side for the wings. There was a similar set of fins at the back, and it could shoot along the runway and take off. It was a little bit like the concept I saw in one of the James Bond movies in the 1970s. Scaramanga had his own flying car, which he flew out of Thailand in. He stored his in a in a farm hut, and magically the hut came down, and out popped this flying car. But it's now a reality. Another one that probably will happen sooner is, if you can imagine a giant Catherine wheel that you would see at a fireworks party, very wide and circular. I saw a version of this, a much larger version of this. So imagine the Catherine wheel on its side, and it had 26 battery operated devices, which was controlled by a central computer, and in the middle was a Jetsons type space bubble. And I thought, wow, I wonder if they watched the same cartoons as me. I'm not sure that this first prototype version, which has actually been built, I'm not sure how far it will go. I think it's been designed as like a city device, and it will probably run for about an hour. But you can travel far in an hour in a city environment, and no doubt what looks to be quite a large wide thing with a bubble in the middle at the moment that could carry, I believe, up to 2 people. And I think they were going to call it something like an air taxi. And I thought, yeah, I mean, that it doesn't use, you don't have to have big fuel tanks. It's really going to be as good as the batteries that are placed in them. So it could be the start of something. Not just a James Bond or bad guy device. It could one day be in a town near you. All right, tomorrow we shall be on to space, the final frontier. See you tomorrow.